welcome to another session on Kubernetes. Now today what we are going to see it, we are going to create once again a Kubernetes cluster with the single master machine. That means our previous videos we have set up the multi-master environment where multiple masters are involved over there and multiple workers are there. So we are achieving high availability on that particular master is correct. Now here we do not want high availability. Let's say we would like to just have a single master available over here and I have 3 workers available. So if your master gone in this setup, your entire cluster would be down. Now this is not a real production environment. This is learning environment which is very close to the production. We are not using any mini cube, we are not using any kind of a single node cluster to learn the Kubernetes. Rather, we are using the exact level or exact production level cluster in order to learn the Kubernetes. But it does not have that capacity. We have bare minimum machines are available, but yes, we will be able to create a cluster with the help of this bare minimum resources also for learning purpose. Correct? So if this master gone in your environment, your entire cluster would be gone. So this is not a production scenario, but for learning purpose, we are going to create it. In production environment, multi-master is a very common practice. Okay, nobody will keep your master with no high availability option. Okay, now, but once again, for learning purpose, this is good. Now, before we start anything, you can see all 4 machines are already ready. I do have a 4 GB RAM and 2 virtual CPU and 50 GB hard disk for the master. And rest of the workers do have a 4 GB RAM, each of them, and 1 virtual CPU and 50 GB hard disk. Now currently whatever machine which I am using, it's a 32 GB. So for worker, it is reasonable for me that I can allocate 4 GB RAM for workers. If you do not have enough memory available, I would request you that 2 GB RAM if you can allocate for the worker also, that could also work over there, no problem. Correct? Now before we start any setup in Kubernetes, it is recommended that these 5 settings supposed to be done on your every machine within the cluster. First of all, every machine do have a CentOS 7.9 version available. Okay, so whatever machine which we have it, every machine do have a CentOS 7.9 install in a non-graphical mode. That means whatever operating system I have installed it on the top of this machine, those operating systems are bare minimum. Okay, this is very lightweight operating system which we have. I do not want to install every package with respect to your operating system if I am not required. So bare minimum operating system I have installed. So it's lightweight. Now this kind of operating system you really require to run your Kubernetes. Because these are the recommended operating systems. Bare minimum. Attack surface is less, very lightweight, okay, and very quick when you are rebooting your machine because unnecessary binaries are not installed on that Linux. Correct? So that is recommended. Now these 5 settings supposed to be performed on all these 4 machines. First, unique name is configured, so every machine do have a unique name should be configured. Plus every machine do have a etc/host file. Okay, and whatever machines are involved in order to create your Kubernetes cluster, the name of that machine should be updated in etc/host, and this etc/host should be updated across all the machines. So if I try to ping any machine by its name, I am supposed to resolve it by this. That is something which is required. Static IP address should be configured on all the machine. Technically, this is the recommended method if you are using bare metal Kubernetes. Bare metal means within your data center, if you are creating the Kubernetes cluster with the help of virtualization environment, with the help of bare metal server, it is very good idea that you can configure static. 99%, this is a good practice which people are using if you are using bare metal servers. Wipe space should be disabled. Okay, SE Linux should be disabled or permissive. Now 99% in a production environment it is permissive, but we are learning purpose we are going to disable it because we do not want any particular blockage or any kind of performance issues to be happen while running the cluster. So better way that you can keep it disabled if you are doing it for learning. Firewall should be disabled over here. Now technically it is recommended that if your firewall should be open in a production environment and necessary port number should be available to be open on the. So this is something which is quite interesting option which we have. Okay, but here in our learning environment we disable the firewall. Okay, because otherwise we have to open the port numbers with respect to the master, with respect to the workers separately, and it has to be done on every machine. That is good practice, but here you need firewall dcmd command to be executed. So better way I thought it, let it disabled because this is a learning environment. So if I go back to my setup which I am running over here, you can see there are 4 machines are already running over here. There are 3 workers and there is only one master is allowed. Okay, now let's go ahead and take the putty session of each. So I will try to open the putty session of my master first. Now this in this video I'm going to show you one by one. So I will go ahead and say root. I do not want to open multiple windows over here. Yeah, it will take time, but not to worry. You will understand step by step procedure. So I will just slightly make it proper visibility for this thing. So this is my master machine, correct? Now here first setting should be the name. So if I say host name right now, this is the master one. Okay, now you can use anything, you can simply say master also, that would be okay. So it is saying master one. So if I go ahead and change the name, you can do it with the help of the command called as host name ctl set hyphen host name. Okay, and whatever name you want to put it over there, you can put it over there. For example, master only, you would be able to see bash. You can see automatically the name has been changed to master, but I will go back to the master one over there. Okay, so this is the way you can change the name. Second point which I told you, that etc/host file should be updated across the cluster, not just on the master. Whatever workers also you have it, you are supposed to execute the same file. So if I go ahead and say etc/host over there, you would be able to see I will put the proper entry IP address of my master machine, the FQDN of the master machine, and the name of the master machine. Similar entries are available for worker 1, worker 2 and worker 3 as well. So make sure that before you start any kind of a setup over there, this file has to be updated across all the machine the same way which you can see it on the screen at this moment of time. Correct? So this file should be updated, because what happen if you keep maintain this particular file over there, it is simple thing that if I go ahead and say ping master one, you would be able to see my particular etc/host file able to resolve this name called as master, and he will try to give me the IP address of 192.168.226.8. Now this entry is coming from that etc/host file. So that means if I give the name with the help of etc/host, I am able to get the IP address. Same logic should be applied to every machine which is available in the cluster. Correct? Now if I go ahead and say ping worker-1, you can see you are getting the proper reply from the worker 1. You will get a proper reply to the worker 2. You will get a proper reply from the worker 3. That means because of that etc/host file, I would be able to manage this ping command properly, and my name resolution should be properly working across all the machines. Correct? Then after that we are supposed to swipe, or we are supposed to disable the swipe space. So if I execute the command called as free, you can see it's already disabled. Now how do I disable this swipe space? There are two different set of commands are available. The first one is called as swipe off -a, and if I press enter, automatically your swipe space would be disabled from your machine. But this is not a recommended method, because what happens if you reboot the machine, your swipe would be once again coming back on. Okay, so this is not a permanent turned off, it's a temporary switch off. Correct? If you would like to do the permanent turn off, you can go to the file called as etc/fs tab, and you can just comment the line number 3 which is allocated to the swipes. Correct? So if I put the comment over there and if I reboot the machine, now that is called as permanent switch off of your swipe space. Now you can reboot your machine again and again, your swipe space would be permanently turned off until and unless if you do not remove the comment from there. Correct? So this is the recommended method to do it. After that, we are supposed to make sure that your static IP address should be properly configured. So right now, if I go ahead and type if config, so currently my IP address would be 192.168.226.8. Now this IP address is configured statically because I am using bare metal hypervisor and we are creating the cluster within my data center. So this is recommended option. Correct? Now how do I check whether my IP address is static or not, or if I want to check, or if I want to change from dynamic to static, what should I do? You can do one thing. You can go to the file called as etc/sysconfig, okay, network -script, and you are supposed to go ahead and provide this name of the adapter, because you can see this is the same name of adapter which I am using it over here, same configuration available over here. If I press enter over here, this is the configuration file with respect to your IP address which is running on your Ethernet adapter. The most important thing we are supposed to change it. It's called as boot proto. It's called as boot protocol. Now it has to be set up as a DHCP if it is working on DHCP protocol. So if it is DHCP, we are supposed to change it to none over there. So this is the first change you are supposed to do it. If you are using automatic IP address, you will see DHCP instead of none over here. So we have to remove the DHCP and put none over there. Correct? After that, on boot supposed to be say yes. On boot means what? Whenever your machine is rebooted, your network service should be automatically started. You don't have to explicitly start your networking service by the command. So that's the reason you're supposed to say on boot is yes. Then you would be able to see the IP address, whatever static IP address you are supposed to put it over there. Gateway. Now this is the gateway of my virtualized environment. You can see the gateway is also available in VMware Workstation. Okay, you will find the gateway. Same gateway you are supposed to type it over here. 99% cases, if you are whatever IP address you are using, the last number would be 2 be the 99% the gateway would be available with that range. Okay. After that DNS, so whatever gateway is available, same IP address will act like a local DNS server within the virtualized environment. So this is the way you are supposed to set up, or you are supposed to configure the static IP address on your machine. Correct? After that, your firewall should be turned off. So if I execute a command called as systemctl status firewall d, you would be able to see it's actually turned off. So you have to stop the firewall, you are supposed to disable the firewall, and then finally you are supposed to mask the firewall. Okay, so these three command you are supposed to execute it over here. So what command we are supposed to check with respect to firewall? So right now my firewall was already turned off because I already told you that these settings are already done by me. But if I would like to stop the firewall D, you are supposed to say systemctl stop firewall D. Then you can say systemctl disable firewall D. And finally the command would be systemctl mask firewall D. Okay, these three commands supposed to be executed on every machine. So remember that whatever setting which we have seen, which we are executed only on the master at this moment of time, it is recommended that all the setting has to be done on every machine within the cluster. We have done the manual settings at this moment of time. Some people will do automatic scripting. The next videos which we are going to see, that is called as cube spray, and in cube spray we are using Ansible based playbook in order to provide all the necessary configuration which you require. That is also very good example in a production environment which we are practically using if I would like to modify anything. So correct. So this is done, but just for a safer side, we will try to go ahead and open up my worker number 1. This is my worker number 2, and this is worker number 3. So all the workers has been successfully accessed by putty. So I just want to minimize. Just want to randomly go to the worker 3. Now you can see the name is already set up. So if I execute hostname command over here, it's absolutely fine. If I say ping master, randomly I'm doing the check. So you can see the name resolution is also done. So I just want to make sure that worker, so name resolution is also working fine. Swipe space is absolutely bang on, it's disabled. Okay. SE Linux, I forget a point on master that your SE Linux should be disabled. My bad. I'm going to tell you that if I would like to check SE Linux is disabled or not, you can execute the command called as get enforce command. If you execute get enforce command, you would be able to see the file or your SE Linux feature is disabled. But how do I disable this particular feature? So there is a file which I need to modify. So open the file vi etc SE Linux and config. If I press enter, okay, so if I go ahead and if I see SE Linux do have three features over here: enforcing, permissive, and disabled. Now SE Linux, what is the value right now? Disabled. Okay, now this modification is supposed to be done in order to play with your SE Linux or in order to disable your SE Linux. You can change that value to the enforcing or permissive, whatever option you require it. Okay. Now this is supposed to be done on every machine. Remember that. So I'm randomly picking up this machine, worker number 3. My swipe space is disabled. I would like to check get enforce over here. You can see it is also disabled. That means I am successfully modified that particular file. Okay. Then I would like to check systemctl status firewall D. You would be able to see that firewall is turned off. Okay. After that, if I would like to check if config, I do have a 192.168.226.11 IP address. So this IP address has been configured in the static fashion. How do I check out? So open the file via etc sysconfig network-scripts ifcfg ens32. If you open the file, I told you boot protocol should be none, on boot should be yes, and IP address, gateway and DNS, this has to be properly configured according to your virtualization network. Okay. So I'm using 192.168.226.0/24 IP addressing. So I would be using the same IP addressing scheme as a static IP address. Correct? Okay. So this is done already. So my basic configuration with respect to cluster setup has been successfully done. Now this is a operating system related configuration supposed to be done over there. Okay. So next settings. Now we are going to do the configuration with respect to Kubernetes. So the best way what I can do it, if I go to my lab setup, okay, and you can see the documentation is already opened over here, but I will tell you how do I reach to that particular documentation. So if I say google.com, I will say install Kubernetes. Okay, so you can see getting started. On the left hand side you would see learning environment and production environment. So we are following production environment. Read this documentation, will provide you very good information that if you want to set up production level environment, what things needs to be considered over there. Correct? Very good. If you get a chance to set up your cluster from the scratch, okay, capacity planning, network planning, bandwidth planning, many aspect or many kind of suitable parameter you have to consider in order to create your production level cluster. Okay. Now the first thing which we are planning to install it, it is a container runtime. That means your container engine supposed to be installed on every machine of your cluster, including master. Remember that. Okay. So let's click on to the container runtime documentation. Now, if you scroll down this page a little bit, you will see according to the reference documentation provided by the kubernetes.io, these four are the recommended container runtimes. Recommended means officially supported. Okay. However, Docker engine is not officially supported by Kubernetes. I will create a separate video why Docker engine is not supported by the Kubernetes, but still it is there because Microsoft and Mirantis company comes together and they are giving the support to the Docker. Okay, that means whatever development, additional development with respect to Docker has to be done for the integration of the Kubernetes. Right now, Kubernetes is not doing that. Microsoft along with Mirantis, they combinedly going for that kind of development. Okay, I will discuss that particular pointer in a separate video. But right now, what is our container runtime environment which we are planning to use? We are planning to use container. So containerd is an open source runtime environment which is very interestingly available in Docker also. If you learn the Docker internally uses containerd only in order to run your containers. Remember that, correct? So this is the our planning to go for it. I will create a separate video on a Creo also if you want to understand how do I play with the Creo as a runtime environment. That is also can be done. I will create a separate video step by step. But currently containerd is the one which we are planning to use. Now before you install the containerd, there is a some prerequisites supposed to be done. Okay, network configuration, you can see by default Linux kernel does not allow IP packets to be routed between the interfaces. Now you're supposed to go ahead and enable this particular parameter. Because of this parameter we are supposed to enable this particular routing. Okay, you can see most of the Kubernetes cluster networking implementation will change this setting, but some might expect that administrator to do it for them. Now if you install any Kubernetes networking plugin, sometime he will automatically change the settings when you install it. Okay, but sometime it is recommended that you can do this particular thing, correct? So best way what we can do it, we are supposed to go ahead and check these settings to be configured on every machine of your Kubernetes cluster. So I will minimize this window. I will open my master over here and I will, now I am doing it step by step, but I told you in production environment you might be using some kind of a script that will make your life easy, some kind of a Ansible play script also, playbook also, in order to do this kind of setting that could also be recommended. But I am doing manually to understand what steps are involved practically in order to create the cluster. That's why I would be doing it manually. My upcoming videos will help you to create cube spray methods. In that cube spray method, we are not installing everything like this. Ansible playbook will do on the all the setting on behalf of you automatically, correct? So I will copy paste this command on my master worker, worker 2 and worker 3. Okay, let's go back to the documentation, and whatever setting which you have done it, you need to apply that particular setting without rebooting to your kernel. So I am executing the command to all the workers one by one, including your master. Okay, I will go back to the documentation. So this is the only setting we are supposed to do it on the kernel level. Now initially if you refer the previous version of the documentation, they would also going to enable bridge modules, or there are overlay modules are available. Now those settings supposed to be enabled, but in version Kubernetes version 1.3 1.30 onwards you are not supposed to follow that. It would be controlled by internally by your other components, so you don't have to explicitly do that. Okay, but let's go ahead and start working on the containerd now. So click on to the containerd. Okay, now here the first thing is to install the containerd on your system. So that is our first goal. So you can go ahead and click on to this particular link. If you click onto this link, it will open this particular documentation. Okay, now this documentation helped me to install the containerd on every machine. Okay, now to install containerd, there are two basic methods they are giving you. First method install it from the official binaries. So there is a GitHub repository available because this is an open source project. Okay. So you can download this binary, extract this binary one by one according to the instructions provided in this documentation. You can install the complete containerd without any problem. Now this is the most important and recommended method in a production environment also. But we are doing it for learning purpose. There is one more method is documented over here. If you scroll down this page, there is a second method is provided by from apt and dnf. What do you mean by this? That means rpm package with respect to the containerd is already available. You can download and install that particular package with the help of yum repository commands. So you don't have to download each and every binary. It's pre-made or pre-configured RPM is available. You simply download it and install it. That's it. You don't have to do anything extra over there. So there are multiple versions of the operating system is listed over there. So according to your version, you are supposed to use it. So I would right click on this CentOS and open the new tab. So you can see where you are landed right now. You are landed to the Docker installation. Now you might get surprised what Docker would be doing over here. Don't get surprised because we are trying to install containerd, which is a runtime environment. As I told you, Docker is also using containerd internally to run the containers. So officially Docker repository will help us to download and install containerd binary also. So we are just taking the help from the Docker to install containerd. Other than that, we really don't need to do anything with the Docker at all. Okay. So if I scroll down this particular page, you would be able to see this is the documentation which we really don't want to go ahead and read about it. When we start videos on the Docker side, that time I will help you to understand that part. Okay. But currently our focus is to just install containerd from the Docker repository. That's it. So I will copy this command one by one and put it down to every machine. So I will go to the worker number one, sorry, master. This is worker one. This is worker two. This is worker three. I am doing parallelly on all the machines. Now he will install yum manager utility. With the help of yum manager utility, you can add the repository for Docker inside your machine. Okay, we are not installing Docker. We are just using the same repository to install the containerd. That's it. So you can see done. I will once again go to the documentation. I will copy this second command which will install or you can configure Docker repository on all machines. So I will go to the master. I will go to the worker number one. I will go to the worker number two. I will go to the worker number three. Pretty straightforward. I will just do the copy paste. That's it. Now here if I just for curiosity that what this particular command do, this particular command will add the repository called as Docker Community Edition stable version. This is just a repository addition command which we have executed. After that you will find a command to install the Docker, but we are just want to install this containerd.io. So what I am supposed to do it over here, I would say yum install containerd.io -1. So this is the only package I am taking from this Docker repository to install it. So I will execute on this master. I will execute on worker 1. I will execute on worker 2. I will execute on worker 3. So it will install the containerd on every machine from the Docker repository. It's an online process, so you really don't have to worry about anything. Simply execute a command, he will resolve the dependency, he will install the containerd, everything it would be automated because we are using the yum installation command to install the containerd on your machine. Okay, so you can see it is almost done on your master machine. Okay, it is done on your worker 1, worker 2, only the worker 3 is a pending. Now that is also got completed. Correct. So once again I will go back to the link. So whatever necessary commands and repository I have to take it from this website, I have done it, so I can close it. Now once again I will go back to the main page where we have started installation of the containerd. Now here if you scroll down a little bit over here, there is advanced containerd command options or advanced topic option is available. Okay, now why we required to go to the advanced topic? Because I want to generate the containerd configuration file. Okay, currently my containerd is installed but it does not have a configuration file. I want to create a default configuration file with all the default parameters. So I just copy this command. Do not put or do not copy this full stop over here. Okay, otherwise the command reference would be different. So be careful while you are doing copy paste also. So copy this particular command and create the default configuration file. So I have done it on worker 1 and master, worker 2 and worker 3. Done. Correct. Now, once you have done the configuration file, we are supposed to open this configuration file on the master as well as on all the workers, and we would like to do a slight change into this particular file. So if you open this particular file, directly go to the line number 125. Sorry, 127, not 125. Go to the line number 127. Now you can see system D C group is equal to false. Correct? Now this is recommended according to your documentation over here. You are supposed to change that particular value to true. Now why we are doing this to true? Simple reason is there. Systemd is a system level utility in Linux. And you know that your control groups are managed by systemd process. So if I want to create any control group, I have to talk to system group. Now why I am making this value to true? Because my containerd should know whenever he launch any container, C group has to be created. So he should talk to whom? Systemd network, systemd drivers in order to. Now we have discussed what do you mean by control groups, what do you mean by namespaces, what logic behind this control group, what that control groups are do, many theoretical concept which is already been covered in a Docker training. Correct? But in Kubernetes, you just need to worry about this particular value. Systemd is equal to true actually. Correct? So I just minimize this page and I will go to this line number 127 of that particular file and I will make this value to true. I would save this particular file, and once you have done the changes, you can start systemctl start containerd. You are supposed to start the containerd, not just start, you are supposed to enable also. Enable will make sure that whenever you reboot your system, containerd service will automatically get started. Same thing supposed to be done on worker number 1. So I will open this file directly. Okay, I will go to the line number 127 and change this value to true. Okay, save the file and type systemctl start containerd, and we are not supposed to start just, you are supposed to enable containerd also. Correct? Same thing to my worker number 2. So I open the file, go to the line number 127, change this value to true. Okay, save the file and say systemctl start containerd, systemctl enable container. Don't forget to enable, remember that. Okay, I will open the file, go to the line number 127, go to the value to true, save the file, systemctl start containerd. Sorry. Okay, I just want to enable the container. Okay, so my installation and configuration with respect to container runtime is done according to the documentation provided over here. Now we will go to installing Kubernetes with the deployment tool, because we are supposed to go ahead, install the necessary tool and creating the cluster that is supposed to be the part of our video. So let's go to the second documentation over here. If you click on this documentation, it is going to tell you there are 3 methods which is recommended by Kubernetes in order to create your cluster. Okay, one is a KubeADM, second one is a COPS, third one is a Kube. These are the 3 methods which are available over there. Now, if I want to go ahead and understand the Kubernetes from the scratch, KubeADM is the basic method which is actually available in order to create the cluster. This is the basic method. Even if you go for COPS or KubeSpray, behind the scene, KubeADM related steps are involved. Correct? So better way, try to understand KubeADM method. Now technically, what is a KubeADM method? KubeADM method is nothing but, KubeADM is a utility. It's a software provided and developed by Kubernetes. Now, as you know that Kubernetes is completely developed in Go language. Similar way, KubeADM is also developed by Go language in order to handle the cluster management. Okay, so KubeADM is what? KubeADM is the utility developed by the Kubernetes in Go language in order to manage cluster related activities. Cluster should be destroyed, cluster should be created, cluster should be upgraded, cluster should be downgraded. So there are so many activities. I want to add the node, I want to remove the node, I want to add the master, I want to add the workers. There are so many activity with respect to the cluster is available, and all those activities would be performed by this KubeADM utility. So it is a cluster management utility, you can say, a cluster bootstrapping utility, you can say. Okay, but this is the basic utility which we are supposed to install it. Before you install or before you create your cluster, you are supposed to install the KubeADM on your machine. Not just on the master, it should be done across the cluster. So the first thing what we are planning to do for installing KubeADM, okay, Now you can see this page to that how to install KubeADM toolbox. So they are saying KubeADM toolbox is available, correct? Now if you would like to perform any previous version of the Kubernetes, you can simply follow this particular documentation. Currently, whatever Kubernetes version which we are dealing with, it's version 1.30. It's the latest Kubernetes cluster which we are going to use it. Okay. Now, before you begin, okay, these are some prerequisites supposed to be fulfilled. These are the same prerequisite which we were talking when we start our video. Compatible Linux host, 2 GB and more RAM, 2 CPUs, full network connectivity, unique name, certain port needs to be open, swipe memory should be disabled, correct? Now I told you to disable the firewall because you need to open the port number, isn't it? Yes. So here you can click on it and you would be able to see there is a required port number are available over here. If you feel that I am working on a production level cluster, what are the port numbers I am supposed to open it on firewall? These are the port numbers available for control plane. Now here we are introducing another word in a Kubernetes cluster is called as control plane. Control plane means your master. In a simple word, they are talking about master, because master is the one who is going to control the entire Kubernetes cluster. That means whatever master components are available, those component is running on that machine. That machine is also called as control. So these are the port number you are supposed to open on the master machine, and these are the port number you are supposed to open on your worker machine. Correct? So this is supposed to be follow if you do not want to disable your specific firewall. But for learning purpose, I disable the firewall from every machine. So technically there is no blockage. Correct? Swipes memory is supposed to be disabled. I told you what are the methods already, how you can disable the swipe space permanently. Okay. Then they talk about install the container runtimes over here. We have already done this. We have installed the container D already. So you don't have to worry about it. We done the modification into file and we have tried to start the service also. Correct? Then these are the three utilities you are supposed to install it on every machine. KubeADM is a very important package which will help us to manage our cluster. Kubelet is also very important package because Kubelet is a service running on every machine, okay, in order to talk with the master and in order to talk with your container runtimes. So it's a mediator. It's kind of a mediator who can talk with your master and he can talk with your underlying container runtime environment over there. And kubectl, it's actually client utility. If I want to interact with my cluster, I would be executing all kubectl command. So you can say kubectl is a simple client utility which you are supposed to install. Now kubectl is completely optional. Okay, but for our demo purpose, we will install every utility on every machine. Correct? Now still Google is the distributor of these packages. Okay, so whatever packages, whatever download which you are going to do it, it should be done from the Google repositories. So Google is currently officially distributing all these packages across. So I will go to the Red Hat distribution. I do not want to go to the Debian or Ubuntu based distribution. I want to go for Red Hat based distribution. Here also they are talking about that SE Linux should be permissive mode. We have already disabled it, so we don't have to worry about it. Correct? Now you can see, scroll down the page. You would be able to see this is my repository which I am supposed to add it inside my particular machine. This is my repository. This repository helped me to install my particular Kubernetes related package. So I will copy it and I would do it on the master number 1, worker number 1, worker number 2, and worker number 3. Okay, so I just put the repository inside my machine. So if I go here and say yum repo list, you would be able to see there is a one repository with respect to the Kubernetes has been successfully added. This is just a repository from where I can download all the packages. Then the next command would be the installation command. So I will copy the next command, which will help you to exclude Kubernetes. Now with respect to this exclude option, you can read this particular point number 2, why they have mentioned this, correct? So currently read this particular point number 2, you will come to know that what you mean by disable exclude options or whatever options are available. I just copy this particular command, minimize this page, and I'm going to install the packages on all machines. Okay, it will take couple of minutes. Give me 1 minute. Okay, so it is installed successfully on every machine right now. Okay, now the package has been successfully installed. So let's go to the next step right now. You have to enable the kubelet. Now remember that your service is not started yet. Your kubelet service will only start when your cluster is up, because in order to start the kubelet he should know where is my API server, how do I communicate with them, what security certificate I have. Okay, without all this information kubelet will not start, and in order to start the kubelet I need to have my cluster should be up, correct? So I just need to make it enable. So what enable will do, at the time of rebooting your kubelet service along with containerd service, both are going to start it automatically because we made both the services. So I will say enabled, 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 enabled. The service is not started yet, but we just enabled it. Okay, so now my utility installation is done successfully. Whatever utilities which I would like to install it, it is done. Now we are going for a next step. Okay, now what is the next step? Creating the cluster with the kubeadm method. Now we are supposed to create a cluster. Okay, now before you create the cluster, once again the recommendation as well as whatever things supposed to be done it, you can please read all the documentation over here. Okay, whatever component install, network setup, okay, everything with respect to the prerequisite we have done everything over here. Correct? If I want to install the Kubernetes with dual stack support, that means with IP version 6, that is also available. So if I would like to go ahead and implement the Kubernetes with IP version 4 or IP version 6, both of them, I could go ahead and I could do it also. Correct? Now I will create one more video that how do I use the configuration file to create the cluster. Okay, what is the configuration file? How it looks like? This is the configuration file. Okay, this is the configuration file which is available over there. Correct? Okay, so currently we don't want to go for dual stack. We want to create a cluster. So if I scroll down the page, there is only single command which is provided, is called as kubeadm init. Okay, init stand for initialization. After the kubeadm init, multiple argument I can pass. If I would like to do any customization with the Kubernetes cluster, I can do that. So if I go to my master machine now remember that initialization of Kubernetes cluster would be only and only done from the master. Now till so far, whatever instruction which I am giving you, I keep repeating you that you are supposed to execute these command on all the machines again and again. But this time I'm literally going to tell you that Kubernetes cluster initialization command, that is called as kubeadm init command, it's supposed to be executed only and only from the master. Okay, so if I execute kubeadm init hyphen hyphen help, okay, you can see these are argument which I can pass with the help of this kubeadm command. So if I want to go ahead and pass API server API address, I can provide this argument on which particular port your API server should be running. By default port is 6443. If I want to change it, you can do that. Correct? Now you can see certificate directory if I want to change it. So these arguments, okay, these arguments I can pass while creating the cluster when you are doing initialization with the Kubernetes cluster. Okay, but currently I said whatever default is available, I am okay with that. I'm okay with that, whatever default configuration is available. So I would only go ahead and say kubeadm init command. If I execute this command without argument, whatever default settings available with the Kubernetes cluster, he will start executing those and he will start creating the Kubernetes cluster with those default settings. So I would recommend you, if you are doing it for learning purpose, let's start with this particular parameter and press enter. Now you can see he will start creating the cluster right now. Okay, now here the Kubernetes version is 1.32, sorry, 30.2. So this is the Kubernetes version we are planning to implement it. So wait for some time. Now here there is a warning. It's okay, it's just a warning. We are using 3.6, 3.9 is recommended to use it, but it's okay. It will take a couple of minutes because of Now you have to be a little bit patient. Okay, it's moving ahead. Okay, so it's generating certificates, generating the configuration file. I can start waiting the kubelet. Now it's checking the health of API server. Done. Okay, my cluster initialization process is successfully done, and he is going to show me a join command over here to join your worker. Okay, remember that now this is the command which is given by my master in order to join your worker to my, correct? Remember that this command is supposed to be executed by the root user only. Okay, so I will copy this particular command along with this token properly, and I will minimize this master, and I am going to execute this command on worker number 1. Okay, it's done. I will execute this command to the worker number 2, and I am executing this command to worker number 3. That's it. So all 3 workers has been successfully joined to my cluster. Now let me go back to my master over here. Now in order to create the cluster, there is a configuration file which we required. So these are the commands which is actually available in order to get your configuration file from this admin.conf and copy it into this particular directory by this config name. So I will copy these all these 3 commands currently on the master, and done. Okay, now if I go ahead and say kubectl get nodes minus o wide, you would be able to see my cluster is configured successfully. This is my master, which is call it as control plane right now. The Kubernetes is successfully installed by the version 1.30.30.2, and currently the status of all these particular containers would be, sorry, all these nodes would be not ready. Means my workers are not ready and my master is also not ready. Now they are part of the cluster, but they are saying not ready at this moment of time. I said okay, but why they are not ready? I will let you know. Now I will execute one more command, kubectl get pods minus n cube hyphen system minus o wide. Now whatever component in order to run your entire Kubernetes cluster, those are master component like scheduler, controller, API, etcd. Okay, these all are master component. But imagine whatever Kubernetes cluster which you have implemented. Why you implemented that? Because I want to run my application as a container. But imagine whatever components are involved in order to run your Kubernetes cluster, they themselves run it as a container. Remember, this is the magic of your Kubernetes cluster. We have not installed anything on our operating system. Whatever components, whatever necessary binaries which we want to use it to create our cluster. Why? Because I want to run my microservices. But he himself run as a container. That is the magic. Now here you can see couple of containers with respect to core DNS are pending, and our nodes means workers and master are currently not ready. The reason is very clean and clear over here. inside your Kubernetes cluster, by default, there is no networking drivers at all. There is no networking component. Okay, because we would like to install the networking component which are third party. Kubernetes do not have natively developed any networking component for your Kubernetes. So we are supposed to be dependent on third party component. Now here we are planning to install Calico inside our Kubernetes cluster. So I will show you how we are reached over here. So if I go to the Google and simple type a statement over here called as install Calico, you will get a documentation over here with respect to Calico, and we are installing Calico on premises. That means we have done the virtualization. So we are installing the Calico on the top of bare metal server, which is nothing but on premises. So this is the document which we are following in order to install the Calico networking drivers over here. And we are not using operator method, we are using manifest file method to do it. Correct? Now people ask me the question, is it the only networking drivers are available? No. If you go to the Kubernetes documentation and say Kubernetes networking, now Kubernetes networking itself is a different training altogether. It's a 3-day dedicated training. Okay. Now if you go to this cluster networking actually, so you can see pod to pod communication, pod to service communication, pod to external service communication. This communication has to be done. If this communication is not happen, your cluster does not have any meaning. And if I would like to go ahead and if I want to run this, I need a networking. And that is the problem why Kubernetes don't have its own networking drivers. That's why we are installing Calico, which is a third party networking driver supported by Kubernetes. But this is not the only networking drivers. If you scroll down, there is a list supposed to be available. Dual stack, how to implement networking module. You can see CNI, container networking interface. If you are going for a networking, we will understand why this networking interfaces are available. Okay, what is a network namespace? What is the purpose of the POS containers? So many things. Now this is the page where you will see the list of the networking related components. So I can install ACI, Anthria, Calico, Canal, Cilium, CNI Genie. Okay, there are many networking drivers are available which are third party, which is open source. Most of the drivers are available, which you can take it and install it on the top of your Kubernetes. For what reason? For networking. For this reason, we are planning to use Calico over here. So everybody should go to this particular link. Okay, copy simply this particular file from here. You can say simple thing. What I want to search it, install Calico. Now we have done everything on premises. Correct. So if you want, I will repeat the procedure once again. If I go here, you can say simply install Calico. If I go ahead and type this search, you will see the second search would be install Calico network and on premises. This is important. If I go to this particular documentation, if I scroll down this particular bar, you would be able to see Calico operator and Calico manifest for files are available. Okay, so most of the people are going for operator. That is something which is a very easy method, but we don't want to go for operator. We are going for manifest file. So if you scroll down a little bit, here is a operator option is available, and you are supposed to go ahead and use manifest file. So you can go ahead and click onto the manifest. There are 3 documentations are available. Install Calico with Kubernetes API data source 50 nodes or less. So I will click on this. So this is the curl command which I received it. I will copy this and I will go to the master. Now why I will go to the master? Because currently from the master machine I am trying to communicate with the cluster with the help of kubectl command. So I told you kubectl is a client utility to interact with my cluster, and currently I am using master machine to interact with the cluster. In real life this is not the case. In real life nobody can give you the access of your master as well as workers. Okay, now in that case what we are supposed to do it, I will go ahead and I will create another part 2 video of this particular series, where you will come to know that if I am not getting the access of this, then how do I access this particular cluster from your machine. I will go to the second part of this video, then you will come to know. But currently I just want to download this calico file on my machine. So you would be able to see calico.yaml file has been installed over here. Now I need to implement, or you can say install, a Calico on my Kubernetes cluster at this moment of time. Now whenever I say install on the top of Kubernetes, installation means he is going to launch the new containers with respect to Calico. So what I will do it, kubectl create -f calico.yaml file. So you can see that it will going to create so many customized object. It is done. Now once you have done this, we will try to see what Calico is going to do it over here. You can see the moment I install the Calico related packages or Calico related component will start launching their own containers. So whenever we are installing anything on the Kubernetes, that installation means it is going to create few more containers. Now I'm using the word containers at this moment of time. Otherwise, the actual word would be pods. So you can wait for some time. Your Calico would get initiated and he would be started providing you the networking services across the cluster. And once it is done that, you will see what could be the change. So wait and watch. Okay, so it's still taking some time because we do have a memory and CPU limited available in our environment. So because of that, sometime it will take time. But you can see one Calico is in the running stage. Okay, we don't want just for running, it should be running plus ready. So we had to wait for some time. You can see they are running, but they are not ready because ready column is still 000. Okay, now you can see all become ready. Now we are waiting for this controller to get running and ready. You can see my complete Calico networking drivers will get installed, running as a pod inside the cluster. Now if I come out of this and if I say now kubectl get nodes -o wide, you would be able to see my status would automatically gets changed and it will become ready. Okay, if I say kubectl get pods -n cube hyphen system -o wide, you would be able to see my complete cluster, all the necessary component which we have discussed in architecture. Everything should be running on their respected workers as well as their respected masters. Correct? Currently, you can see that my cluster is ready at this moment of time to run any application workload. For testing purpose, I would say kubectl run my pod hyphen hyphen image is equal to nginx. So you can see the pod got created. So this is my application pod, not a control plane pod, because this is called as control plane pod at this moment of time, because these are my Kubernetes itself. Okay, but if I say kubectl get pods right now, you can see currently my application pod is in the phase of container creation. Okay, wait for some time. It's creating the container. It's running. So my complete cluster would be running absolutely fine. Okay, and my nodes are working fine. So my one master and three worker, okay, cluster, Kubernetes cluster is ready. So we are going to stop the video over here. Next part, as I told you, this is a cluster. My cluster is ready right now. Now I would like to access this cluster from my machine. I am a developer. I am an operation engineer. I'm a data center operation tech lead. Now I would like to access this cluster from my machine. Remember that my machine could be a laptop. My machine could be any machine which I am using. It could be a Windows based, Linux based, any machine. So that is a machine which is out of this cluster. Okay, so we are supposed to make sure that you will never get access on any of the worker or any of the master inside your Kubernetes cluster. You are supposed to access this cluster from your local machine, correct? So the next video I will create that how do I access this particular Kubernetes cluster from the remote machines. Okay, so till then, bye bye, take care and enjoy the video.